Hey, Matt Wheeler, the
What's up?
shoeless, the shoeless therapist,
Aren't you
sock
the one
full
that tells me you
therapist.
should be the sock-filled
I
therapist?
just said that, or the sock full therapist.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
and and what do you have for us today? I actually bought some new socks because I was like, and I thought of you because I was like not my athletic socks. I always have great, but the other socks,
Yeah.
I was like, they're really old and they had holes in them. It was ridiculous, and I was like, oh, Matt would be so embarrassed at this. So got rid of those. I threw them away and got a new collection of more socks than I know what to do with. Anyway,
Oh, nice.
so what do you have?
Did you get fun ones or were they
I
boring?
got fun for me. There's stripes and argyles and things like that. They're not like crazy fun. It
Okay.
was convenient. So
Well, today we
oh, those
have,
are pretty.
yeah, I don't know if I've shown you guys these
I have
before.
not seen them.
So these are what, like some sort of tropical flower?
Yeah, they look. I was gonna say I feel very Hawaiian in that.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, no,
that's all.
totally. And
Yeah,
they're just
cool.
awesome
Yeah, I
orange
love orange. Yeah,
and yeah, they're fun ones. So,
good job.
Um, I mean, if we're being totally honest, I rarely ever buy my socks, and so it's my wife that gets them, and
She does a
so
great job.
yeah, she really does.
Mhm.
I just have to try and match them up when with whatever I wear, and I guess
I
I have
was gonna
flowers
say,
on my shirt too, so
I was gonna say with those kind of socks, you go, I'm wearing them. I don't care, so it's all fine. So
yeah, no,
they're
yeah,
a
pretty much.
statement. It's all good. So
It
yeah.
is, it is. Okay, so as far as topics.
Hmm.
Um, I went back and it's because it's funny. Every week, I'm always like, every time we do this, I'm like, man, what topic should I hit today? And I'm gonna go back over one that I've hit before. And um, in our relationships, when we aren't connecting, we tend to take a position of either being what could be referred to as the one that's demanding,
Okay.
and then the other one is the person who is withdrawing, right?
Hmm.
And so what I've called that before, and what Sue Johnson calls it, is your pursuer, the person who's pursuing, and then you have a withdrawer. And just so that we're clear, typically I think 75% of in 75% of partnerships, especially like a heterosexual partnership, the woman is the pursuer,
Mm.
and the man is the withdrawer. Now, I always throw this in here for those men out there who are pursuers. I happen to be one of the 25% of men that are pursuers. So, nothing wrong with being a pursuer. Um, and, but what ends up happening when there's disconnection, and we could get into attachment styles, which would be kind of fun, is that the person who is pursuing feels like if they don't pursue, the relationship itself will just die.
Mm.
And so it's for them, it's imperative. I'm going to keep pursuing because I love and care about this relationship. I'm going to keep like chopping down this wall of ice, because if I don't, our relationship will just freeze. It'll just die. But they feel like they're dying, on their own, and they're chopping down this wall. They feel shut out. They feel like no matter what they do, their feelings don't matter. Now, I can keep going, but the withdrawing partner, now, a lot of times the withdrawing partner might have their own hidden coping mechanisms, right? They might have an addiction or whatever else. Now, a pursuing partner can have their own unhealthy coping mechanisms as well, but um, the withdrawing partner may be like, look, you're overwhelming to me, and I feel flooded every time you talk to me. I feel like a bad guy. And so they're trying to like keep things stable. So it's really strange because a pursuing partner, usually doesn't respect what the intentions of the withdrawing partner are. The withdrawing partner, to them, in the way they view the world, if I wasn't stable, our relationship would fall apart.
Mm,
So the pursuing partner is like, if I don't pursue you, if I don't chase you, and if you will, even overwhelm you, our relationship falls apart. The withdrawing partner feels the same way. If I wasn't the stable one, if I wasn't the rational one, our relationship would fall apart. And so both partners feel like they're the ones that are saving the relationship. And they're both wrong, oddly enough. And because what we're ultimately trying to figure out how to do is to show up in a space where we actually understand and take like I'm trying to I want to use my words carefully. I almost said take care of each other. I almost said uh it's showing up for each other, but not necessarily in unhealthy ways, right? So we want to try and understand, like, I know for me, I didn't understand how absolutely overwhelmed and flooded my wife would get when I would pursue her in unhealthy ways. I mean, we would start a conversation and she goes, "Okay, I'm done." And I'm like, "What? We didn't even start." Um and and I didn't have enough compassion, I didn't have enough understanding and empathy for how overwhelmed all of my energy would be for her. And I had to start tuning into that more. Hey, uh, I've been, I might say to her, hey, I wouldn't usually use this language, but I'll just say it this way. I've been pursuing you. You know, I'm trying to get connection. I'm trying to, call you, see how you're doing, see what you're up to. Just I'll send you a text message. Hey, thinking about you, right? And I'm not getting the response I'm wanting. And so I'm now starting to get worried and wonder if I matter to you, and wonder if you care. And I had to realize that there were times where it would be like, oh, tell me about why you feel overwhelmed. But even that question itself can be really overwhelming, right? So it might even be as simple as, hey, did you feel any over feelings of overwhelm from me today? Have you felt like you want to shut down? Have you felt any feelings of withdrawing today? So I had to learn to get curious as a pursuing partner and not take it personal, because I used to take it absolutely personal. Well, you're just doing this because you don't care about me. You're doing this because I don't matter. You're doing this because you want to dismiss me on purpose. I'm not important. You would rather just be roommates. From a stereotypical male's perspective, you're just doing this because, or you all you care about is the paycheck, right? And a stereotypical female might say, I'm just a sex object to you, right? Like, those are things that I will often hear, but I hear every dynamic and angle, right? I've heard plenty of men who have said, I just feel like you just want me for sex, right? Like, I mean, I've heard anything and every combination you can imagine of reasons why we justify that I don't matter, whether it's the pursuing partner or the withdrawing partner. And so learning how to, and this is not easy, learning how to slow down and ask what it's like for our partner, and I'm not going to take it personal. So, oh, you felt overwhelmed. When did you feel overwhelmed when we were talking last night? When did you realize you were flooded? And I'm curious, what was that about? What messages did you hear me say? Now, as a pursuing partner, just those questions in themselves can be totally flooding for that person. And so it's being patient, learning over time, asking, "Hey, was that one of those moments where you get flooded?" No. Oh, okay. You didn't. Do you know why you didn't get flooded this time when you normally would? but it takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice for us as couples to really start having those conversations. Um, and so I'm curious, Tammy, like there's a lot of other fun places I could go,
Yeah, well, I
but
do want you to, but like I wrote down, how do you not let that be the stall? Because like, oh, like it'd be really, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I'm flooded, everything shuts down. So how, like I hear two different people's two different ways of approaching the
oh,
situation and
totally.
thinking they're saving this. But it feels like from what you're sharing, it's like, the if I get overwhelmed and flooded, I can go, oh, I'm overwhelmed and flooded, and oh, that's just too much. And I'm not being snarky. I'm asking an honest
Oh no,
question. How do
I totally
you,
get it.
yeah, how do you
And it's
like not
funny
let that
because
be the issue then,
and as a recovering pursuing partner, and by that I mean because typically the pursuit and the withdrawal, neither one are actually healthy. Um, I had to slow down, and there's a technique that's called slicing it thinner, and it's like and so instead of even talking about, well, why are you overwhelmed? Instead, I ask about the overwhelm itself. So, hey, I'm wondering, well, it's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. Oh, uh, can I ask you a question about feeling overwhelmed? Right. So I even ask, maybe asking permission. And it sounds funny but you're trying to show them it is not my intention to overwhelm you. So you can actually say that, like, oh, wow, I'm not meaning to overwhelm you. Can I ask you a question about you feeling overwhelmed? And then if they say yes, I'm going to say, um, okay, uh, I might say, at what moment did you feel overwhelmed? Right? Like, was it when I said, hey, do you have a moment to talk? Was it when I came into the room and just started telling you, and was it, I'm curious, not to give it an excuse or even for me to change it. Oh, did it have anything to do with my tone of voice? Right? Like I want to get curious about what you shutting down with being overwhelmed looks like. But I want to be careful. It does not mean, nor is it super helpful for us to be like, okay, I'll change my tone of voice. No, like I may not be able to change my tone of voice in that same situation. What we're doing is learning tolerance together. The withdrawing partner needs to learn tolerance of the pursuing partner, and the pursuing partner needs to learn tolerance of the withdrawing partner. Sometimes it's, hey, I realize you're overwhelmed. Um, I was wondering if you'd be willing to just go take a walk, and we don't have to talk about this, but I'd like to just spend some time together. So it's trying to tune in and become aware of that withdrawing partner, but because the pursuing partner is always eager, typically. And so it's trying to slow it down. And once we reconnect, so let's say we go on a walk, I might say, hey, are you in a space where I can bring this up again? Can I can I ask you more about feeling overwhelmed? I still have a topic of conversation I would like to have with you, but I get fearful that no matter how I do it, it's wrong and that I have to just stuff this down. And so I'm wondering, are you in a space where we can explore a little bit more? And so and as a pursuing partner, I'm mindful of it, but I am reapproaching it because too often pursuing partners become burned out pursuers. We just, it's like, why bother even trying? No matter how hard I try, I change my voice like you say, I change my words just like you say. I do it at a different time of day, just like you say, right? And the pursuing partner feels like I change everything about me and you still shut down. It's still never good enough.
And that's what it feels like, and the withdrawer can go, yeah, so how do we help the withdrawer, like, so yes, the pursuer can be curious, the pursuer can, shift some things, but then, it feels like if this is a relationship, both of us have to be willing. So
Well,
how do you approach the withdrawer to be less overwhelmed and grounded in whatever they need to do and not just
oh,
abandon
totally.
ship?
Right. And well, one, I would say uh there's a couple of things. I would talk about this dynamic in and of itself,
Ah.
right? So, hey, I listened to Matt and Tammy, and they were talking about pursuing and withdrawing partners. And I think I'm more of a pursuing partner, and it would appear that you're more of a withdrawing partner. Would you agree? Right. So, what's interesting is that Matt and Tammy were talking about how flooded the withdrawing partner gets. Is that what it's like for you? Do you get flooded? Like, and if they're like, well, no, oh, well, do you get overwhelmed? Like, anytime I bring emotion in the room? And they're like, oh, yeah, like, oh, do you, how long and how often in your life has that happened? Where do you think that came from? Um, Usually, if we're talking about this interaction, it's less overwhelming. And you could ask, do you think, was your mom or dad, what were their roles? Was one of them a pursuer? Was one of them a withdrawer? What was it like when you saw that interaction with them? So we're talking about the concept instead of just immediately jumping in and triggering it.
And so
That that's
if
what
you,
slicing thinner is.
yeah. And do you see these patterns, like we're talking about a primary relationship, but do you see, like if you're a pursuer, are you basically kind of a pursuer in many relationships, or does it go back and forth, or, are
It,
are there nuances?
well, it can change, but I would say, yeah, I mean, it can be different. I've worked with, let's say there's an individual who in their partner relationship, they're a pursuer, but anytime their mother calls, uh,
Oh.
or their mother attempts to connect, they can be more of a withdrawer. Sure. What we're looking for in any relationship is what patterns of behavior do I have that are preventing the relationship from allowing connection to exist? And so if in one relationship I tend to be more of a withdrawer, I might actually try and lean in and say, hey, I need to tell you that I'm kind of ignoring your calls and I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I don't want you to take it personal, but I need to figure out how to do conversations with you that aren't so overwhelming. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about it. Now that is a incredibly scary thing for somebody to do that tends to withdraw, because the other person might, well, I can't believe you did this. I knew you were ignoring me. I even asked you about it. And it's like, okay, so now I'm flooded. Like I am so overwhelmed. I tried to open up and now I feel flooded, right? And so it's a tough dynamic that ultimately in every relationship we need to try. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I'm good where this relationship's at. Okay, but then you might be bored in this webinar.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and I mean, I always believe that the goal is healthy relationships. And if you've got an unhealthy pattern, I mean, it's not satisfying for either party, because if you're the pursuer and you're always getting shut down,
Oh,
that's dissatisfying. And if you're the withdrawer and you're flooded, you're overwhelmed, both are dysregulating, and I think, create a gap between the two of you. So,
mhm. There was a massive butterfly that just hit my window,
oh, oh,
and I was like, oh.
I didn't know if it was aliens or, Luke Air Force Base or what. So all good. So yeah. So
Oh.
so you said, like let's talk about attachment styles with this. So like because this does play right into attachment styles.
Oh, it absolutely plays into attachment styles. So I will encourage anybody, if you have any questions or
Please,
whatnot,
yeah.
throw them in the Q&A. We always love our questions. Um, so if you talk about the attachment styles, right, you would more traditionally see that a pursuing partner is somebody who has um high anxiety during conflict and low avoidance, right? And so a low avoidant person within attachment styles is either going to be somebody who's secure or somebody who's preoccupied or anxious. So you technically a pursuer can be a secure person who's in a uh relationship with a withdrawer. And
Mhm.
the pursuer, if you will, is, hey, I'm not getting my connection needs met lately, and I'm lonely and I want to connect with you. And the other partner is like, well, I'm just overwhelmed, I can't do this, right? And the secure partner, usually if you're able to stay secure, is either able to find peace in some way in the relationship. Well, this is where we are, and I'll just take the connection where I can get it. And I need to be a securely attached person is comfortable with intimacy and autonomy. And so they can kind of hold steady for a long time of just being like, well, if you need your autonomy, that's fine. Until at some point they're like, this is too much autonomy. Like, what relationship do we really have? And so generally your pursuer is going to be the preoccupied, anxious person who is has a low avoidance, because for them they're like, oh, I'm not avoiding anything, we're going to get to the bottom of this right now. I don't care if it's midnight, we will resolve this. And the withdrawing partner's like, I just need a good night's sleep. Like, in fact, I prefer we just go to sleep and never talk about this again. Are you good with that? Right? And the preoccupied anxious person is, we're not getting sleep because we'll never talk about this if we don't talk about this now. And so you're generally going to see a preoccupied anxious person be more of that pursuing partner. There may be some exception when, if you have like a fearful avoidant, they tend to be more avoidant, but sometimes they can have that anxiousness kick in because of their fear, and they're like, we have to resolve this. And then the fearful avoidant person's like, okay, you know what? Never mind, forget it. It doesn't even matter.
Mhm.
Um, we're not doing this, right? And they end up moving into a more dismissive place because, well, I just can't trust you anyway. Yeah, you say you're here now, but you're unavailable, right? So you could get into that fearful avoidant, and then typically your dismissive person is going to be your withdrawer. They don't want dependence. They feel better in a way being like alone, in some sense, or I'll do a relationship as long as you don't need me. Right? A dismissive
Mm,
person's like, hey, relationships are great as long as you don't need me. And so, we're having fun together, we're connected, this is enjoyable. But the moment there's conflict, hey, this isn't okay. This is too much drama. And so your withdrawing person either tends to be your dismissive person or your fearful avoidant. And whereas the fearful avoidant can kind of go back and forth. Now, I remember talking to my wife one time, and she said, I came into the relationship secure. And if I became dismissive, it was because you were preoccupied and anxious. And I went, oh, well, at first I was like, no, if I'm broken, you're broken too. You
uh,
laugh.
no, I know. I was going like that because when you said, I was like, I bet there was a precursor to that. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
No, it absolutely in the beginning, it was like, no, if I'm broken, you're broken. And and it took time for me to go, oh, she actually might be dismissive because I was just so overwhelming. Now, the preoccupied anxious, a lot of times they are seeking reassurance. And it's like, tell me you love me, tell me I matter, tell me I'm important. And the more reassurance that you give them, the worse it can actually make it, because a lot
Hmm.
of preoccupied anxious people actually just need to learn within themselves, I'm okay. I'm lovable the way I am. I had to do a major shift over time where I could go to my wife with um a desire to connect and basically be okay if I felt rejected. It was like, oh, well, that's disappointing. I'm not going to take that personal. It doesn't mean that I'm not wonderful and lovable and a good person. You might just not be wanting to connect right now. You might be overwhelmed and busy with the kids. You might be busy with work, whatever it might be. And so I had to learn to be more secure and just be okay with occasional rejection or disappointment or whatever. And I actually, in my case, I told her, stop reassuring me. Stop
Hmm.
telling me that I'm good enough. Stop telling me that I'm lovable. Like, it wasn't, don't stop telling me you love me. But when I come to you seeking reassurance, I can't have you reassure me, because it's actually making me learn to reassure myself less. It'd be like me calling you up, Tammy, and saying, Tammy, I'm worried. Uh, you know, we're not getting all that many questions and answers on the webinar. And if I said to you, um, I need you to reassure me that I'm good enough, that I'm a good webinar co-host, right? Instead of like, that's going to be like a preoccupied anxious. I need you to reassure me, Tammy, that I'm good. Now, if I came to you and said, "Hey, we're not getting a ton of questions and answers. Do you think there's anything I can do different?" And you're like, "Well, I've been thinking about it. Like, maybe we should try this or do that or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, let me think about that." Now we're having a wonderfully secure conversation about what we could do to make this more involving or enjoyable to other people, or maybe even attract more people to watch and submit, whatever. Right? So there's nothing wrong with having that feedback, but if you came to me and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about the involvement on the webinar," and I immediately go to, "Oh my gosh, Tammy thinks I'm the worst. I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to look at the views for all the other people that Tammy does webinars with. And oh my gosh, Tammy, they get more views than me." Oh, yeah, your smile is my favorite.
But you're playing out what really happens, I mean, like, this is no, I mean, it is. It's like, I love that you were like we could have a conversation about, like, can we do something different, versus like, I need to know that I'm, like, like, and that anxiety is like, it's almost palpable over the screen.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and I'm using this as like an example.
Yeah, it's a great
And
example.
to be honest, I mean, I am normal and I'm human. I've had similar thoughts about all those things. Otherwise, I wouldn't be bringing it up to some degree. But think about this, the way we approach our partner and the anxiousness or the dismissiveness that we approach says everything about our needs and our attachment style. And so if I'm preoccupied anxious, the only person who can fix that is me. Even if my partner stays dismissive, stays a withdrawer, I have to work on me. And so I'm going to spend all my energy focusing on, all right, what can I do to feel more secure? What can I do to feel that, you know, to recognize that I have value, even if it is true that I am not the best co-host of all the webinar series, right? What if I have to accept that might be true for whatever reason? And so, but learning how to do that takes a lot of growth. for a person. And I'll tell you, the dismissive person, when I'm working with two couples, when I'm working with a couple where both partners are withdrawers, those are the hardest couples
Oh,
to work with.
yeah.
Because, first of all, what brought you into my office to begin with? Neither one of you wants to face conflict. The preoccupied anxious person is like, conflict, let's do conflict. Sometimes it's like, let me create some conflict because we need to resolve conflict so that we can feel close, right? That can be a lot easier to work with. Working with a withdrawing partner or a dismissive partner, I have to figure out, how in the world do I get you guys in my office, first of all, to confront conflict? Well, you're here, so we're doing it, right? And then two, what's preventing the leaning into conflict to begin with? And so, and then how do I help you guys figure out how to do that with at home when I'm not prodding both of you?
So do you, I'm trying to decide, you can have a couple that are both withdrawers. So can you have a couple that are both pursuers?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
And
Okay.
oh, and they look, it's very intense. It's lots of energy, lots of, it's actually, if you think about it, it's the most traditional way. If I were like, oh, this couple was fighting, right? It's the most traditional way we think about fighting. And that is, Tammy, sorry, I can't do this. I wanted to enact it with you, like, Tammy, uh, I think we don't have as many questions on this thing because you are not engaging enough or promoting our webinar as much as you are other webinars. And then you come back and be like, you know what? No, Matt, like other
All
people.
my other webinars have lots
Oh,
more people. It's absolutely you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're right.
Oh,
And those,
interesting.
and
Okay.
so that's two, typically that's two pursuers.
Okay.
Neither one of us is really avoidant of conflict. We're going to lean right in. Now,
Okay.
keep in mind, any two people can show up as pursuers in the first 5 minutes of conflict, and then your withdrawers like, all right, I'm out, I'm overwhelmed.
Okay.
Right? But when you have like two born and bred pursuers, I mean, it's just conflict, fighting, pointing fingers at each other. You're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. Okay. It's an interesting way to think about it too. So,
But
from the,
but as a therapist,
mhm.
it's almost it's I see two people like that and I'm like, whoa, hold on, we got to slow this down. This is super intense. It can be quite overwhelming, but it feels way more doable in the beginning to figure out how to help them de-escalate and regulate and co-regulate each other than I'm sitting here with two people who are like twiddling their thumbs and neither one of them is willing to bring up conflict. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
but and I could see that it would be a lot harder to get them into your office. So you probably don't have as many that are double withdrawers. So we do have a
Yeah.
question, and we would love more questions because
Yeah,
you
give us
heard
more.
his anxiety about this. Do betrayed partners often seem to have disorganized attachment after betrayal, even if they may not have been presenting that way prior to discovery? And like, I would love to talk. I want you to answer this question too, but I do, I do, I think that that there can be, like, I could be a secure attached person, and then my whole world gets wiped out, and then everything feels less secure. So can you talk about like disruptions or changes to an attachment style?
Absolutely. Any of us can change our attachment style, or our style can just naturally change. I don't remember the exact research around it, but like it's very well documented that our attachment styles can change. I will say that um, I when we're talking about attachment styles, we're typically talking about primary relationships. And so let's talk about those for a second. You've got
Mhm.
mom, dad, best friend, partner. right? You can just kind of look at it that way. So, any of us could have ultimately 4 or 5 real solid primary attachment people. The last time I did an attachment style assessment, I did one that was actually, it rates. So a lot of attachment style assessments will have you fill out your attachment style, and it gives you kind of your general attachment style. And I did one that had mom, dad, best friend, partner. And with my dad, who has passed away, mine was dismissive, and it was gonna
Mm-hmm.
be dismissive. It's never gonna change. One, he's dead. Two, he didn't have the ability or capacity to connect in the way I needed. And so I just realized like conflict with him wasn't beneficial. Working through conflict, I had a pleasant relationship with him. We were, till he passed away, like I got to a place where it was pleasant, and like I was kind, and he was kind, but like there was never the connection that I would have wanted, if that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
so ultimately, though, what it looked like was dismissive. Like we weren't going to go through conflict. We weren't going to resolve anything. We weren't going to connect. That happened absolutely because of betrayal on his part. Like he violated the uh, relationship of a parent with a child. And I mean that, I mean, it doesn't need to be, you don't even need to read into that. You just don't show up, if that makes any sense. It could just be neglect. It could be abuse. It could be all sorts of things, right? And then later on in life, he just didn't have the ability to repair. And so that attachment could, it just stayed in dismissive with me. And we were pleasant. And then he passed away and, whatever. But every other relationship I had, it was in the secure. The reason I say this is that absolutely, if we experience betrayal, we can move to a disorganized attachment or a preoccupied. And disorganized, if I remember right, is, I think, fearful avoidant. I'm almost positive that's the fearful avoidant category that I talk about. It can be, each category can be listed slightly different other than secure. But you can absolutely go that way, because think about the fearful avoidant. The fearful avoidant longs for connection, but then when they go and try and get it, they immediately are like, oh shoot, you're gonna betray me, you're gonna hurt me. And so then they pull back. And so it's this constant push and pull. It's this constant tug of war. And I've talked about it on here before. One of my absolute best friends in this world is a fearful avoidant. And he and I actually talk about that, where it's this, hey, do you want to talk? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I totally want to talk. I'm busy, but can we schedule tomorrow? Oh, you know what? You're too busy for me anyway. You don't want to talk. And I'm like, no, I actually do, but like, I can't until tomorrow. Yeah, no, don't, no, I'm good. I'm busy tomorrow anyway. And it's like this push pull. I want to be close. No, you're going to hurt me. I want to be close. No, you're going to hurt me. And that is, I mean, if you think about betrayal in and of itself, especially when you have repeated betrayal over and over and over and over, right? It happens, and then we think we're good, and it happens again, and then we think we're good, and then it happens again. That's a great way to become fearful avoidant. I don't know how to trust myself. I don't know how to trust my partner. I want connection. It's really scary, but it feels really good. But you hurt me again, right? And so it's that push and pull. That would be a very normal response. It would also be very normal to be like, oh my gosh, maybe you betrayed me because it's my fault. I wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a good enough spouse or a good enough partner. And so I keep seeking reassurance. Are we good? Am I loving you enough? Am I giving you what you need so that you won't betray me again? And that might be more of what classically has been referred to as like that codependent. Um, but of course we're not pathologizing attachment, right? And so we are going to look and go, well, yeah, somebody would develop that insecurity that, hey, I learned that if there's problems in relationships, look at myself and it must be me, and if I fix me, then things will be okay, which is just unhealthy teaching. And so even if you haven't presented that way prior to discovery, absolutely that can come up. And sometimes I haven't presented that way since I was a teenager or since I was a kid. And then it took the betrayal to actually pull me back to that unresolved place. And so that teenager in me is coming out all over the place in this relationship. Because whatever I had done to kind of patch up that poor attachment style, or poorly adaptive attachment style, I shouldn't even call it that, but anyway, um, it's now been unleashed by this betrayal. So hopefully that answered the question. I actually think it's a really good question.
Yeah, I do too. So say that's happening. Like, do you feel like that then, because I mean, I talk to some betrayed partners and they feel like they can't trust anybody. So like now, so do
Well,
you feel like that attachment can, like that dysregulated attachment can then be more pervasive in other relationships?
oh, it can, but I would say that if somebody, it's so funny because I want to say this, but I'm trying to make sure that I totally agree with it. I would tell, right? Like it's
Yeah.
so here's what I would say. Let me talk about recovery first, and then we'll
Okay.
backtrack. This is why in recovery, it's so important that we develop a solid core of attachment people. And
Mm.
so one of the first things I will see when I'm working with individuals, couples, is I will say, who do you guys have to reach out to? And if they tell me, oh my gosh, I've got a good core, the man tells me I've got these guys that I reach to, and I'm like, oh, how often do you talk? Man, I talk to at least one of them every single day. How open are you? We're really open with each other. And I'm like, cool, you are developing a really good base for essentially attachment disruption to occur. Because when we dig in, it's going to disrupt. It's really not disrupting anything, but we're going to stir the pot. We're going to shake it up a little bit. And it's the same thing for the other partner. Hey, what do your connections look like? And if they say to me, my partner who has betrayed me, and obviously they don't say it in those words, but if they say to me that my partner who has betrayed me is my best friend. Oh, like still? Yeah. And that's why this hurts so much. Okay, so who else do you have? Nobody. Okay, so like a brother, a sister, a cousin, like an in-law, like nobody. And I'm like, oh boy. So, because like I'm pushing people, if we're going to repair this primary relationship, if you are going to set yourself up for success moving forward, and that success is not dependent, and I want you to hear what I'm about to say. Success in our relationship is not dependent on whether or not my partner has a slip up or a relapse. And that's where I'm not giving any excuses. I'm saying that the process of recovery is hard and that oftentimes a slip can happen, maybe even a relapse. The more people we have that we are attaching to securely, the more likely we can weather those really difficult moments and not be just smashed. And so, a betrayed partner, I'm very much saying, hey, you need to find a healthy support system. Now, sometimes betrayed partners form a little betrayed partner group, and we have to be careful because are we keeping each other healthy or are we stirring up unhealthy ideas that are trying to keep us safe, such as, well, if he slips, you have to kick him out of the house. And I'm always like, slow down. That might be one option, but it might not be the best option. Let's figure out what you guys actually need here. So try to have as many healthy attachments. Okay, I have my betrayed partner group that I'm close to. And then I've got some other siblings or friends or whatever who maybe can help me think through things, but not necessarily just from a betrayed partner lens. And it's the same thing for the recovering, uh, you know, addict, I hate to use the word, but it just made it simple. It's the same thing for the recovering addict is like, don't just have your attachment in the recovery world, because sometimes we can feed off of each other unhealthy beliefs. Oh, this is this, your wife's crazy. She needs to chill out. And it's like, okay, no, you're not going to help me here.
Well, and
So,
but uh, I have lots of friends in lots of different arenas. I have lots of recovery friends, and that's really
which
great,
is
and I,
really great.
value all of that. And then I have all these other people that all add value to my life, and I think it is good to have, people you can leave. And you know what? We shouldn't have to talk about recovery and healing ever, for 24/7. Like we should be able to, go have coffee with a friend and just talk about whatever, and so
Yeah.
I think that there are ways that we need to navigate this. And you used an example of like, he has, friends and she has him, and I hear unfortunately lots of couples where it's the two of them, like it is the two of them, and there's
It's
been the
just
betrayal.
us.
It's just us, yeah. and
Yeah.
and 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 this is a little, kind of hot topic too, but and they'll go, and I hear it from partners of like, like I want to have sex with them because that's how we feel connected, and but like they just had discovery and all of this kind of stuff. And I always kind of feel like you are looking to feel close to somebody in a physical way. And again, this is not judgment, like this is just, I'm pondering, and but there's no separation to even process through the wounding that has happened. There's
Right.
no working on changing so that I can show up and be, a person of integrity, in the relationship. So it feels like I'm just going to I'm fearful.
If I'm doing it from an anxious place to satisfy my feeling of insecurity, then I have to be careful with that behavior, right? Like if I'm going to do this and it's purely about satisfying my anxiety and my fear and hoping that I have some sense that I'm a lovable person, then I would say, well, we got to be careful. Is your behavior in that moment to satiate that actually serving you well? Um, so yes, like that's I think one reason why it's so important that we have pockets of different people that we can reach to and rely on when we're in a rough place. And only having our partner, I would say, even if there isn't betrayal in your relationship, only having your partner, well, okay, let's assume there's no betrayal. Your partner passes away suddenly. Do you know how miserable your life is? You're so lonely. You're so sad. Tons of grief. You're go watch the movie Up. Next thing you know, you're putting a bunch of balloons and trying to fly your home away to some random place because you didn't have any friends. You didn't have a life. Sorry, I don't know if that's the perfect example, but
No, but yeah, I love my husband dearly, and we've got friends that like they do like everything together, like everything. And my husband and I have talked like, oh, like, I would have nothing to talk to him about. I want to
totally.
know, like it's good for us. We have some different interests. We have different pacing. So not a surprise. I'm high energy. He's a lot
It, it,
calmer.
it makes me laugh because there's times where I've told my wife, like, hey, I think I'm gonna take this many days off. And she's like, why would you take that many days off? And I'm like, because I want to be home and relax and whatever. And she's like, and it's funny because I always get that feeling like she's like, no, 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 you need to go to work.
Yes. Yes. We'll talk. I'll see you when you get home. It'll be
Yeah.
great. So yeah, we'll have things to talk about. It'll be great. Yeah. No,
No, and
I
I agree with you. Some people are so, there are times where I go, huh, I wonder if that's healthy. To me, it looks so enmeshed that like they can't survive without each other. And I actually think there's a certain a healthiness to, I don't want to live without you, but I also have a life independent of you, and you have a life independent of me. And this is a beautiful thing. It makes us unique and makes us stronger as a couple.
Yes, this is funny. My husband is out of town right now, and my daughter called last night. She said, "I know you always struggle when Dad is gone," and I thought, "Wow, that was an interesting observation for her, like to make." And he is balancing for me, and I'm usually the one that is off traveling, so it's always a different dynamic. But it was an interesting observation that she was checking in on me, and
Oh,
so I
totally.
started listing all the things I was doing, which is, I'm doing all these things to self-soothe and manage and in a good way, but yeah, it was kind of interesting for her to say that. And I was like, oh yeah, he is definitely my touchstone, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just interesting.
Oh, there is nobody who can bring calm to my anxiety more than my sweet wife. And so I want to be clear, that's beautiful. We want that, right? Like there is no other human in this world who I could lose that I would be more devastated with than her. And that's wonderful. That's what we want in a healthy relationship. Now, at the same time, if I had nobody but her and I lost her, I couldn't come to work and be a therapist. I'd have too much of my own hurt and pain going on, right? And there's various reasons why it's so important for us to have some diversified attachment. Our two primary attachment figures, if life is, I shouldn't say it this way, but if life is just, our two primary attachment figures are going to die before us, mom and dad, right? Like if life is just, we are going to lose them. And if we don't have a more diversified attachment base, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes children lose their parents and they don't have a more diversified base because they're still growing children. And that's why it creates such a wound to lose a parent. But yes, we all have to learn to diversify our attachment and make sure that we're getting it in healthy ways with multiple people. And I know for me, I have multiple attachments enough out there that if I lose one because they get a new job or they move or they have a life event occur and they're unavailable, like there's a million reasons why you might lose somebody either long term or temporarily. I have enough that I go, oh, okay, well, I need to branch out a little bit. Let me find one more person to add into this attachment quiver. I don't know if
Oh,
that
I
makes
like
sense.
that term. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I do. I like that. Yeah. And yes, similarly, like, like I have lots of people, me sitting at home by myself with the dog is, like, that is not that is not my best. That's not the best for me. I need healthy people. I need to be around people. I'm very social. So I don't want to just, I don't want to just be by myself. So
I'm with you.
yeah. Well, I do really appreciate you as my co-host. So I really do. I'm glad everybody showed up today, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Debbie and I will be together. We're going to actually be at the Empowered Women's Retreat next week.
Wait, you guys are gonna do the webinar like face to face,
Won't
or
that be different?
or
Yeah.
will
No,
you both be on two computers?
I think we can do it on one computer. So
Oh,
we'll have
that's
it. We'll play with it beforehand. But yes, we will be in the same location at the same time, from the Empowered Women's Retreat. So
that
that'll be fun. So
sounds
yeah, yeah.
so fun. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, and it's so what is we're full for August. We already have the dates for October, but we're full for August, and we're looking forward to another amazing healing event for the partners next week. But then planning already for the August or for the October option too. So yeah, so Deb and I will be on next week, and then I'll see Matt again in 2 weeks. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Matt. Take care. Bye.